look at the 10 hottest years ever measured, they've all occurred in the last 14 years.
And the hottest of all was 2005.
The scientific consensus
is that we are causing global warming.
This is really not a political issue so much as a moral issue. Temperature increases are taking place all over the world.
We have to act together to solve this global crisis.
And the Oscar goes to An Inconvenient Truth.
Mankind is not causing global warming.
Having multiplied by 4 the numbers of people on this planet, we ought to have a law.
For the poor of the world, they are the first ones to get hurt.
Some creative way must be found to make them a part of this effort.
When I go around and give talks, the most frequent comment I hear from the public is, you know, this global warming stuff, couldn't this all be part of a natural cycle? I predict that common feeling amongst the public is going to end up winning out over our best climate experts in the world.
First of all, the new evidence, let it be said here, that's come out just in the last few months shows that this may well be even worse than has been described. 3 days ago, 2 new studies were reported in the peer-reviewed science journal Science magazine. One of them shows that the Arctic ice cap is melting more rapidly than had been predicted. One of them shows that it could completely disappear in summertime in as little as 34 years. Most of the computer runs, and this is a respected computer modeling group, peer-reviewed, stretch it out 35, 45, 55, could be as little as 34 years. This problem is burning a hole at the top of the world in the ice cover that is one of the principal ways our planet cools itself. If it goes, it won't come back on any time scale relevant to the human species.
It's interesting that how global warming gets talked about by scientists comes out in a biased way. They talk about how, well, you know, we're increasing the greenhouse effect, but they don't talk about how we're affecting weather, which acts to, in fact, the cooling effect of weather on the surface of the Earth is bigger than the warming effect of the greenhouse effect. Scientific consensus, you've probably heard about the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the thousands of scientists that are involved in, putting out periodic reports on how the climate system works and what we know about global warming, blah, 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 blah. Well, there are a lot of scientists from around the world involved in that, but they're sort of herded by some fairly influential political types and scientists turned political who I know, because I've talked to them, before the IPCC got started, they had reasons. They were going to get rid of CO2, production from fossil fuels, like they're getting rid of chlorofluorocarbons. And it was like science didn't matter. This was the mission. And they cloak it in science. So that whole process is greatly compromised. Now, it's interesting that the climate modelers you hear about that, have 100 scientists working on these climate models with, hundreds of millions of dollars invested in them, and it's a huge effort, expensive. There's 20 main models, basically, from different groups around the world. It's interesting that a lot of the people that developed these models weren't trained in meteorology. They're physicists, and it's okay to be physicists. I mean, my main guy that I work with is a computational physicist, and he's taught me a lot of what I should have learned in college to begin with. And I've been teaching him weather. And the two really go together. But what I'm saying is a lot of these modelers don't understand how complex weather is. Well, this is a satellite, NASA satellite, Aqua satellite. It's been up there for over 5 years now. I am the lead scientist on this instrument right here. It's a microwave scanning radiometer that rotates continuously and measures all kinds of things. It measures sea surface temperatures and wind speed at the ocean surface and sea ice around Antarctica and the Arctic Ocean and snow cover and precipitation. It measures a lot of things, this microwave radiometer. But basically, this one we can measure sea surface temperatures pretty accurately, even through clouds with. And then here's an instrument down here that measures those flows of sunlight coming into the Earth and the infrared escaping back out to space. It's called a radiation budget instrument. It's meant to measure the radiation budget of the Earth. You know, how is the sunlight that the Earth is absorbing changing with time? You know, are we absorbing more or less year to year? How is the infrared cooling changing? These are things that are key to global warming because CO2 is a greenhouse gas. It traps some of the infrared, causes warming. You know, so we have to watch the data from these instruments and try to figure out what's going on in the climate system. Okay? So here we've got a case of the climate models. None of them are agreeing with the satellite data. Climate models have not yet been made to behave like nature. So can we trust predictions from them? That's sort of the bottom line. I've had a trio of papers, one already published having to do with climate sensitivity, another one which is now appearing. I use a simple climate model to demonstrate that the climate modelers are ignoring something important about clouds, and two of the leading modelers in the world were the reviewers on the paper, and they agreed, yeah, you're right, we didn't know this. And I mean, I'm not even funded to do this work. I just, you know, I know based on my gut instinct from what I know about weather as a trained meteorologist, I don't believe this stuff. I want to dig in and find out how do these climate models produce so much warming and why. And I think we're beginning to see, anyway, the stuff that I found is something that should have been found 10 or 20 years ago by these same people. But the people that work climate models aren't funded to look for natural reasons of global warming, They're funded to look at the human impacts on climate. They have no motivation for looking for non-human impacts on climate. They aren't charged to. The IPCC does not have the charge to understand natural climate variability. You know, if you're paid to find something, chances are you're going to find it.